Welcome into the DNVR Gaming Podcast, brought to you by remember to totally for free today at dnvrgolf.com. I'm your host, Drew Kreisman. With me, as always, is the team from DNVR Avalanche, Rudo, and joining us for this very special edition of our own video game awards show that I guess we're calling the Gamies. We'll see. We're working on that. Is my good friend from Crashing Game Night, Matt Diorio. Man, first of all, thanks for start with you. These two guys barely paid any attention to it last night. What were your thoughts on the actual game awards where they take themselves very seriously?
The actual game awards where it takes it seriously? Honestly, most of it's now pre-show now. I mean, they do so many awards pre-show, and it's all about the reveals and stuff. And honestly, a lot of it was very lackadaisic. Like I was telling the guys pre-show, is that I kind of wish I didn't ditch out on Disney Investor Day during the show, because there was both going on right now.
Totally.
Now, granted, we got some really good reveals. I mean, like Perfect Dark. Now we get to see what the initiative is up to. I joke around with some of my friends though that are huge Xbox fans, and I'm like, well, now you guys get a game made by Sony, because part of the initiative is ex Naughty Dog and ex Sony Santa Monica guys that worked on Uncharted, God of War. So we're gonna see that, and then Mass Effect. That teaser trailer was enough to keep me occupied for a while. But it wasn't bad. Right. I mean, Last of Us getting Game of the Year was honestly not a surprise. It was the darling, so to speak, but it wasn't my personal Game of the Year, though. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, it had a bit the Oscars where somebody sweeps through and wins a whole lot.
Yeah,
but I typically don't care as much who wins and loses. I agree with your assessment, though, that I was a little bit disappointed in the just kind of. I feel like we've seen a lot. They showed off Mass Effect, but it sure was a little Mass Effect. What kind of level of excitement?
For me, for level of excitement for Mass Effect, it's a little tempered this time around because Andromeda bombed so badly, and I'm going to try and go back and replay it again, but it just wasn't the same. But the fact that they're kicking off the trailer with Liara to Sony, which that means we are going back to the Shepard verse. We are going back to where we belong. And the fact that during N7 Day, back on November 7th, Casey did announce that it is the A team that's working on Mass Effect. Now, hopefully EA doesn't pull away from them like they did with Anthem to help make FIFA. I know AJ, we were talking about the Mass Effect trailer earlier, and I'll let you kind of talk about level of excitement there.
Yeah, I mean, I watched it last night. Rudo and I were mid-raid when it happened, and then when it got done, it was the very first thing that I did. And I watched it last night, and then I kind of processed it, and then when we got done with the abs pod today, I frame by framed it to see what I could I could pick out of there. Start opening the trailer with both the Andromeda Galaxy and the Milky Way Galaxy. I thought that was interesting. I'm not sure if it's supposed to be a continuation of both. I don't know if they're trying to tie them both together. Andromeda took place between the first and second Mass Effects, so I'm not sure how they would pull that off. Having Liara pick up an N7 thing in the snow and dust it off with a little ship in the background. At least one of those characters in the background looked like he was a Solarian. You couldn't really tell what the other two were, but one of them definitely looked like he was wearing Turian armor. Cool. Frame by frame did as best I could to try and pick out some tiny details. Interesting stuff, but it just, the biggest question for me is they put both galaxies in there. That's 100% intentional, and it just feels like they're going to try and tie them together. I don't know how they're going to do that. To be honest, I'm a little disappointed we're headed back to Shepard. I would be okay. I was kind of hoping we could move on completely from it and just have that be the basis of the universe. Just seeing how Star Wars forced the Skywalker thing serves as kind of a warning to me about how if you get too obsessed with your main storyline, you can really lose your way creatively. Because if you look at all the offshoot stuff from Star Wars, almost all of it is better than its main 9-movie storyline. And that I think was instructive. You have a gigantic sci-fi universe that you can play with, and for them to kind of go back to the Shepard verse, as you called it, makes me a little nervous. I'm obviously hyped as hell for it. It looks awesome. It's got Liara right there, and you're like, okay, she was a great character. Maybe the character that grew the most from when you first meet her in the first game to the end of the series. She maybe had the most growth throughout the whole thing. So to see what she's up to, and you remember her people live hundreds of years. So you don't know how old she is. We don't know how far in the future this could be, because she has such a long lifespan compared to humans that who knows where in the timeline this actually is. But it was the fact that I can have this conversation and spend 4 minutes just talking about it, like, tells you it was a really well done teaser, because there was enough to pick out to keep you interested, but not so much that we can tear anything down.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. I mean, honestly, when I say Shepardverse, I mean like Liara and with Garrus and that whole crew, right? Shepard, if we move on from Shepard, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Because depending on the ending that you went with, on Mass Effect 3, he does meet untimely demise, but ultimately I think it's good. It's like you pointed out, we talked about it now for another, good 5 minutes, and all it was a minute teaser trailer.
Yeah. It's just a teaser, and it had enough packed in there that it was like,
yep.
Okay.
So
I'm amped for it, but there is
I'm cautious.
What was the last good BioWare game?
Are we talking before EA got their hooks into them?
Doesn't even matter.
I mean, honestly, Mass Effect 2, I think, honestly, was the last great BioWare game. Because Mass Effect 3, you could tell where EA really exerted their influence and put in a lot of that where you have to go multiplayer to get the platinum, to even get the good ending to the game. And the fact that EA, made them go with a 2-minute ending. And then BioWare had so much backlash that they had to go in and repatch the game. I mean, if you want to talk about multiplayer, I guess Old Republic, I've heard good things about, but I haven't played it, so I can't really say that. But yeah, I mean, Anthem bombed, Dragon Age Inquisition wasn't great, Andromeda bombed. So I think that if Mass Effect and Dragon Age both bomb, this is going to be the end of BioWare.
Yeah.
And EA is going to chew them up, spit them out, and be done with it.
This upcoming iteration of Mass Effect actually kind of feels like what we were facing with Shadowlands, with World of Warcraft, where
either succeed or go under.
Exactly. The previous iteration just was not popular. People didn't like it. It didn't do well. People were pissed about it. If Shadowlands didn't do well, that might have started to be the death knell of WoW finally, right?
Yep.
And instead, Shadowlands, I mean, Rudo and I are playing it every night. It's awesome. It's so good. Everybody's happy with it. It's selling like crazy. It's kind of revitalized WoW as a franchise. That's exactly what Mass Effect needs. Because if it doesn't, the franchise is dead. It's over.
Yep. The line between success and failure there is so thin. And with Mass Effect particularly, I think they even said after the trailer, they were like, this is in super early pre-production, so take it with a grain of salt.
I say we're at least 3-4 years out for it.
We better be.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm having some interesting, fun technical difficulties. I have no idea to what extent I'm close to real time by now, but the one last I wanted to drop in there from that before we get into our own awards and just celebration of our own favorite games of the year was if anybody saw anything new they're particularly excited about. The only thing that got me like legit stoked, and I may not even play this because I'm not huge on MMOs, but I thought that what they showed off for Crimson Desert looked phenomenal. That looked dope. So I don't know if anyone else saw something new they wanted to say, hey, yeah, actually a new property I hadn't thought of. I'm intrigued at the very least.
I mean, it's from the same people who did Black Desert Online, so I'm expecting it to be quite similar. Which Black Desert Online was fun, but it lacked a little bit of depth for me. Yeah, exactly. So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing for me is, even though I don't have an Xbox, I don't plan on picking up one, is going to be Perfect Dark, though, because I'm interested to see where the initiative takes it. And Xbox, after the fiasco that was the reveal of Halo Infinite, needs something exclusive to really help drive console sales, because unfortunately, Game Pass, yes, it is a great value. It is not a system seller. It really isn't. You need these games, and to have Halo Infinite not there and ready to go, it does hurt, because you look at all their marketing material, it was all about Halo. They had tie-ins with Taco Bell, and, the whole boxes was all Halo. So, and I will always support all those guys that used to come out of Naughty Dog and Sony Santa Monica, those guys, and they did find a new home with the initiative. It's right, literally down the street from Sony Santa Monica, the studio and whatnot. So I'm anxious to see what they do, because Xbox really needs exclusive games. They need these new studios to really start packing a punch to make it show that their investment in these now 20 studios was worth it.
Yeah, I mean, a new Perfect Dark is the kind of thing that would push me towards an Xbox. It's funny because I think we talked about Perfect Dark on our last show.
Yeah.
As like an underrated game that kind of got lost in time. At the time, it was like, it's funny because it was such a huge deal with me and my friends, because we were just a little too old for GoldenEye, or a little too young for GoldenEye, and then Perfect Dark was like right in our age range where we started wanting to shoot each other in video games, as one does. So
that age.
Yeah, exactly. That age where you don't want to team up with your friends anymore. You want to murder them.
Yep.
So Perfect Dark is exactly the kind of franchise that, like, I love Halo. So Halo was obviously going to be enough, but throw Halo and Perfect Dark in there. Now all of a sudden you're talking about something that's interesting, because I've been sitting here wondering, okay, well, what's Xbox going to do to make me want to buy their system? PlayStation always has stuff that I've bought every PlayStation ever, and even though I'm not a huge console guy anymore, and it's because they always have just those 3 or 4 titles that I have to play. I gotta get my hands on them, and the Xbox has fallen off on that over the years. It's been a slow decline, and because I never cared about Fable, it didn't have a great lineup to begin with. So this is a big thing, that they're going to bring back Perfect Dark. They need to give me another Conquer game too, and you guys can really win me over.
It's tough because I was very much Team Xbox growing up, but now it's like, well, I can play 95% of these games on Steam on my PC, so why even bother getting an Xbox?
Yep.
Well, I think the nice thing though for you AJ too is like,
effective, I will say.
But I think for AJ though, with you having PC, right, and Sony now dipping their toe into the PC realm, Horizon, Death Stranding, they are looking at potentially other titles going PC in the future, and I think honestly that's a win-win for everybody. PC gamers get to experience the rich catalog that is the Sony Studios, but then also Sony Studios get more income to help make better games.
Yeah, and I've always said that one of the things I liked the least about the gaming market has been the constant battle for exclusives and stuff. Like I love that I can have a PC and sit back and play a large portion of the market. Really, the only system that I absolutely have to buy to play a significant library of games is a Nintendo. I have to buy every generation of the Nintendo because you always get a new Mario, you always get a new Zelda, you get a Mario Kart. You get too many high quality AAA titles that you're not going to get anywhere else and never go on sale. So it's like Nintendo has the exclusive market figured out. They make their own stuff in-house and they make them at the absolute highest level. And then if you dare try and have fun playing them with your friends, they shut you down.
He's not wrong.
And on that note, I think I'm close to real time. I'm going to have to work like a host of an actual awards show and just pop in like really quickly and then let you guys have the conversation. That'll be fun. And how this is going to work too is we're just going to decide. There's no voting process. There's no electorate. We got some nominees here. We're going to talk about them. And if we don't feel like any of them deserve an award, guess what? You don't get an award. Welcome to DNVR Gamies. That's how it works here. If we decide, nice. And I bring that up because our first category, quite frankly, is the one where we got to start. It's where, 3 of the 4 people on this podcast make their profession, and it is in the world of sports. And quite frankly, sports games, they're stuck in the mud, man. There's some good games on here, and we can talk about their qualities, but there needs to be innovation. I mean, even when you look at these names right here, I'll give you the nominees and I'll let everybody else talk about it. But the nominees for Best Sports Sim of the year are MLB The Show 20, FIFA 2020. I mean, pick a FIFA, whatever. Madden 21, NBA 2K21, and NHL 21. I mean, it's the same franchises. They've got a monopoly. They've got a toehold on the sim market. Very few of those have innovated in any meaningful ways over the last couple of years. So, gentlemen, which of those deserves an award for Best Sports Sim of the Year? Or do we just tell them all to go home and do better next time?
Absolutely.
Burn it down.
None of them. Yeah, definitely.
Burn it down. I mean, I love the show, but all of those franchises can suck it.
The sports market of games will never be good until the leagues allow multiple different people to make their games. As long as it's a one maker only, it will just be repetitive.
Yeah, the greatest argument for capitalism ever is the sports gaming industry.
Yeah. And I would agree with Rudo's sentiment on that is, because MLB's got the first party rights, you've got NFL made the deal for Madden and all that. Competition breeds innovation. And when there's not competition there, you don't have anybody pushing. Because honestly, I would say Madden, the best years of Madden were when 2K was around making football games.
Right.
I mean, even when Madden in the mid 90s, when you had NFL Quarterback Club and stuff like that, Madden had to take over that market. Mm-hmm. Like it had to come in and be the best because there were already people there. It wasn't like Madden was born the best. We started off with Tecmo, Tecmo Super Bowl and stuff, and we went from there. It forced people to continue to make better games, and then since the exclusive agreements, nothing. And then my biggest complaint, and I think I make this point on maybe every show that we do, but the fun like adrenaline sports games just don't exist anymore. There's no Blitz, there's no NBA Jam, there's no NHL hits. None of that stuff exists, and those are the most fun to play with your friends.
NBA Playground is the closest thing to an NBA Jam, and that thing's terrible.
It sucks. I have it on the Switch, and it's garbage.
It's just so hard to sell a sports game, especially without all these third-party ones that don't have official naming licenses.
Yeah,
and there are people that work like day and night, like Eastside Hockey Manager, where there are just fans of the game that make these rosters for it, but it will never sell even anywhere close to anything like the officially licensed games. It's just not a fair fight.
Yeah. I saw that NHL did. I know, right? I saw they did a thing where they had like a more arcadey type of throwback to the Sega games that you could get if you had pre-ordered NHL 21, which I didn't do, and I went and saw it on there. I was like, "Oh, this looks neat. I'm going to see if I can buy it for like $5 or $10." And you can't get it if you didn't pre-order. So it's like this actually looks exactly like something AJ and I have talked about before, like a 3-on-3 blood-filled arcade hockey game with old school graphics that people in the DNVR community would love to come together and play, but we can't. What it really is some subsidiary of
last time you had that was 1997, 1998 when you had the NHL version of Blitz and NBA Jam.
Yeah.
Back when back when Messier was still with the Rangers.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the Blades of Steel games; those were awesome, and they gave way to the NHL Hits games in the early 2000s, which were awesome. And then what did they do? What? How did they screw up the third NHL Hits games? Because there were two really good ones. What was wrong with the third one? It was 5v5, and they tried to turn it into an NHL sim, and people were like, "This isn't why I play Hits. I don't play Hits to worry about positioning and gap control and all this nonsense. I do it because I can dress up like a snowman and punch an alien through the glass. That's what I do."
Yep.
Let's go.
Pretty much.
It turns out most days I want to play video games. I don't want to play a sports simulation that's true to life. I think that's just at the end of the day what it is.
Yeah. And I
some Mario Strikers.
Straight up. I'm with you guys. There's got to be the other stuff too. As much as I do enjoy my very realistic baseball sim, sometimes it makes me throw stuff and break my controller and do all of that. But I agree with all of you. Nobody gets an award. Let's hear Billy Crystal say what AJ did in an award show the other day. Everything in this category sucks. You get no awards. We're moving on.
Yeah,
that's how we start the show here at the DNVR Gaming Awards. But we have been talking a little bit about alternatives to those. Now, these are really like alt sports sims, but arcadey, but these are alt sports games. So our best non-traditional sports game category, the nominees are the Tony Hawk 1 and 2 remake. We count this as ongoing, but it's always updating. And hey, they gave a bunch of awards to Among Us, which came out 2 years ago. So if they can do it, so can I. We're nominating Rocket League in Best Non-Traditional Sports Game, Steep, the snowboarding sim, I suppose it is, arcade, and Fire Pro Wrestling. Those are the nominees for Best Non-Traditional Sportsy type experience. Thoughts on any of those? I mean, Tony Hawk remake, old game, but fantastic game.
Thank you for capitalizing on the always powerful nostalgia factor.
Right. Now we just get to do old man Tony Hawk and his kid.
I mean, I think I'll be in the minority in this category, but I think the award should go to Rocket League because it is the only game, even including the Sims we were just talking about, that has a successful esports scene. And I know like NHL and NBA have their like one tournament a year where people can actually win money, but
Madden too.
Yeah, the Rocket League has like an entire circuit. They have events all the time with pro teams on them. It's by far not only the best game of the bunch, I think the most successful on a bigger level.
Well, and you look at it, Rocket League started out as a PlayStation Plus freebie game.
Yep.
And look how it grew. It got a popular, after it came off the free month, everyone was like, hey, I'm now going to go buy it. They dumped money into it. They bought skins. Then they were able to move it over to, the other platforms, and they've just been growing ever since. And I would absolutely agree with Rudo. It is, honestly, from an esports scene, the only thing I think would probably, in a non-traditional type sense, is I think Splatoon's probably the only thing that rivals it right now on the esports scene.
Yeah, that's a good call.
Yeah, and you can't reward Nintendo with anything right now.
That's AJ saying that.
Yeah. They're not allowed. I'm a massive Nintendo fanboy, but you can't act like they have been lately and get any kind of credit for a multiplayer game.
Oof. Yeah. All right. I think that's right. I agree with what's been said here. I do think Rocket League needs to get it. I did want to point out, because we were talking about it, that Fire Pro Wrestling, I think, very successfully achieved what we're talking about here. The WWE games have been going like more toward this simulation, realistic, like really weird, like not fun to play. And then they released what was basically a broken game this year. And then these guys who are like, well, we don't have access to any of the big names or any of the big, they don't have the exclusive rights deal. You got the independent wrestlers. They're like, we're going to release an arcadey, old school, fun game to play, and I gotta hand them credit, and I hope they can continue to figure out a way, because they can't just put Hulk Hogan on the cover or The Rock on the cover and expect people to buy it, right?
Just don't release a buggy game, and you won't have backlash.
I gotta say, that snowboarding game is not good.
Dude, I
like Steep.
Steep is horrible.
Yeah.
Oh,
if you are one of the people that's very good at creating your own fun, it's a fun world to play in. But if you want a video game to play, don't play Steep.
Give me SSX backs and I'll be happy.
I'd take 1080 snowboarding over that nonsense.
Make Police Academy 3 look like Police Academy 4. All right.
Yep.
All right. Kevin Smith fan. That's right. All right. I know my audience. Okay. Are we okay with giving it to Rocket League there? I really do think that's
easily
a solid win.
That's a deserving title. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Similarly, but away from sports, but we like to compete here. So we've got best games for competition. The nominees are Call of Duty Warzone, Among Us, Fall Guys, and MLB The Show, which doesn't deserve to win it, but it does have a decent online. But we're going to take that completely out.
Can we get the category again? Because you cut out in the middle of that part.
Best games for competition. Games for competition. You're competing with some people out there. You're trying to prove your value. Mortal Kombat 11.
PUBG.
I thought about it, but we're not really the Fortnite crowd here. You know, they're going to give Fortnite awards on the big shows. We don't play Fortnite here, so they've got plenty.
Actually, Fortnite didn't even win last night.
I noticed that. Yeah.
Honestly, I don't think really any of them really, because Modern Warfare, frankly, Warzone is not great. It's rehashing the same stuff over and over. Now, Plunder's a lot of fun, but I think honestly, if I'm going to give something in that category, which is, I almost want to go 0 and let's move on, but is Among Us. And the only reason I want to say that is because when you start getting live streams going that are raising money for charity and you get AOC playing it,
right?
You know, that
get out the vote.
I mean, come on. AOC started up a Twitch channel, you know, and it's actually entertaining to watch her play that game too. Right. But I mean, honestly, I don't think much of that really deserves it. That's just me personally, but
all right, Rudo, make our case for Fall Guys.
Yeah. So I definitely think Among Us should probably win, but I would argue for Fall Guys because of the wide range of people that can play it. First of all, there's just enough RNG where even if you're good, sometimes things don't go your way and you won't win.
Yep.
But skill does definitely make a difference in that game. And it's fun to play with anyone. You could play that with your 4-year-old kid or your 60-year-old grandpa, and everyone can have fun playing that game. And,
everybody is a jelly bean.
Yeah, it's slightly higher def jelly beans than Among Us is all that is.
And I would, and like I said, I wouldn't argue with that though as well. So I'm like, for me, there's not money that really sits. So Rudo's argument.
And on a personal note, I suck at Among Us, so there's that too.
maybe that's Fall Guys. So this is where he's coming from.
Yep.
So just on that alone, because Rudo is better at it, I think we've got to give the award to Fall Guys.
Oh yeah.
I tell you, some of our best streams we had this year was us playing Fall Guys.
Fall Guys, yeah. We're gonna have to all get in on that for sure. All right, similar but a little different is best co-op game. We're a community here. We've got the DNVR fam. We like playing games with the fam. Sometimes you're against, sometimes you're with each other. A couple of, just the one that I guess is in both categories here, with Among Us also getting nominated for best co-op game. We've also got the ongoing and newly soon to be updated Overcooked series. I think they're on 2, but with expansions and stuff. Animal Crossing New Horizons, where the co-op has been widely panned. So I'm going to be very curious to hear everyone's thoughts on the co-op in that game. And Streets of Rage 4.
Man, I think
What? No Battletoads?
Oh, was there new Battletoads?
Yeah.
There was a new Battletoads.
What new Battletoads? Throw it in there. Who cares? We're not doing it. Put it on the list. This isn't official.
The best game
The
game in this category is Animal Crossing, but it shouldn't win this award. So
No.
Right.
We're gonna get to Animal Crossing later. In no way is this winning.
No.
The co-op
Best
experience
co-op. I'm gonna say Streets of Rage. If you're gonna have to give it to something in the category, it's Streets of Rage. As much as I love Animal Crossing and I have 600 plus hours invested in it, co-op, no, because you are locked behind. Like if you're doing co-op on the same island, it's the other person's island. What? You're just basically a tenant.
How are we defining co-op? Because in Streets of Rage, you work together, right?
Right.
But Among Us, despite having just argued against it, is infinitely more fun when you're playing with your friends.
It depends. I don't know, man. I'm sorry, but I play brawlers on the regular with friends of mine. We have a group of us that goes through and whoops those games ass up and down the block. And
I should have known my audience here. I'm just a little bit younger than you guys, so those were just a touch before me. But
I loves me some Streets of Rage.
Honestly, I really don't even think anything out of that category is great. I mean, Streets of Rage is probably the closest thing to a co-op if you really wanted to find it as a co-op.
And Overcooked just makes you hate each other. So
Overcooked tests your relationships. That's all it does.
We did a whole podcast
and then Mario
several weeks ago about how there just aren't very many great co-op games. There need to be more of these, especially now that we're all stuck in quarantine with our significant others. Come on, developers.
Look, the Baldur's Gate 3 is on its way.
The death of Split.
Well,
really
if you want to, if you really want to talk co-op, really, then I'm going to throw Sackboy into the mix.
Sackboy. I don't know Sackboy. There you go.
Sackboy's Big Adventure is it is got 4-player co-op. So you can actually go through every single level with 4 players. So, if you really want to go that route, I would say that over like an Animal Crossing. But
there you go.
It's Sackboy. It's Little Big Planet.
I can't believe that. How many games did Little Big Planet turn into?
Yeah,
right?
That's ridiculous. They're like still making stuff.
Yeah.
Little Big Planet 1, 2, and 3. You had Little Big Planet karting, and then you had Little Big Planet on the Vita. So this would be game 6.
Yeah. It's amazing that they managed to
and honestly,
little platform.
Right.
And honestly, it is this iteration is the best out of all of it because it takes all the tediousness of Little Big Planet and throws it out the window, and you don't have to worry about it. It's just strictly platforming now.
Get into that. I'm gonna have to check. I'm gonna have to give it a look again because it's been several years.
You can get it on the PS4.
There have been some great co-op platformers over the years.
Yes,
games like that.
absolutely.
Creator. They're out there. It's just that you have to want to find them.
Yep.
Right.
Correct.
And a lot of them will just drown you in nonsense too, and they get away from it.
Yep.
It's tough.
All right. We're moving on up. We've only got a few categories left, and this one pretty closely resembles some of our favorite games of the year. But sometimes they try to say like best graphics or best artistic design, all this other stuff. They get all weird and interesting with how they're trying to define it. We went with the prettiest game of the year. Look, man. Well, I don't know. I'm not a graphic designer. I don't know technical details. Yeah. People tell me parts of certain games have bad graphics. I'm like, I thought it looked dope. I didn't know the thing. So what we're talking about here are the prettiest games of the year. Define that for yourself however you want. The nominees are Doom Eternal, Ghosts of Tsushima, 13 Sentinels, Ori and the Will of the Wisps, and Final Fantasy VII Remake.
All right, we already know why the last one's on there, so we're just gonna.
It also got nominated for art. It got nominated for Best Art Direction at the Game Awards. I didn't make that up. It was gorgeous. That game is gorgeous. It probably doesn't deserve the win here, but Final Fantasy VII Remake is good for it.
Hey, and
I know the graphical things
Drew,
people talk about. The stuff with the doors and the rocks having low textures for a game that's as beautiful as that one is, I could not care less. But I feel
for me, it's Ghost. When you're getting into the point where I'm taking more photos in photo mode than actually playing the game, and those photos, when you compare them to like their almost real life counterparts, you cannot tell the difference. That's where I get, that, and that's just running it. That was on the PS4 Pro, 30 frames per second with, HDR enabled. But that game is just absolutely beautiful between, the cherry blossoms, the rivers, the mountains, everything like that. So to me, that is my choice above all of them.
Can I segue this into my favorite game-related side story of the year?
Oh, please be the one I was about to tell.
Is it the Red Dead Redemption story?
That's exactly what it is.
Oh.
Are you talking about the one where the one person is sending in photo mode shots to the news?
Yeah. Sending them to the news, and they keep putting them on the news broadcast.
This beautiful picture of Oregon. It's like, nah, man.
Amazing.
Yeah, I was tempted to start sending them in Ghost of Tsushima shots.
Fantastic. So Cyberpunk hasn't yet been. It's not. It doesn't get to be disagree in any of this.
Well, I'm going to disagree with Cyberpunk altogether because the only version that's running even cleanly right now is on PC. Console is absolute trash right now. That game should have been a next-gen exclusive. Yep. There's so many problems with texturing, lighting, bugs. I mean, you name it, they're going to have a lot of work, and they just did a 50 gig day one patch. Cyberpunk, absolutely, because I got to see the presentation at E3 last year. I mean, and of course, that was running on a PC. That game on PC is absolutely stunning. I will agree with you on that. But from a console perspective, I
mean, the same thing is kind of true with Flight Simulator. Like, you have to have a beast of a computer to really make it look as good as it can.
Was it my best friend was messaging me also during Raid last night, freaking out about Cyberpunk, and he was like, "This is the most beautiful game I've ever seen." And he absolutely has one of those high-end PCs because he's been going crazy this year.
Yep.
Yeah.
So for me, it's one of those. His mind about it.
It's amazing. I like. Yeah, this is one of probably the most subjective that you're going to get, right? I haven't played Ghost of Tsushima yet, but it looks absolutely gorgeous just to look at. I know. Hey, look, man. Okay, limited time, limited budget. It is on. I actually think it's on the. Because my PS5 should arrive tomorrow. By the way, thank you to DNVR member Kenneth. By the way, it's a whole fun story there, but. There's between 3 games that I want to be my first next gen experience, and Cyberpunk had been in the mix, and so I'm looking to see, if these
wait for
patches. I'm waiting.
Yep, wait for the next gen patch next year.
Yeah. So then the other 2, just to get the update, and Spider-Man Miles Morales. To play
Miles Morales just got a new update where it's 60 frames per second with ray tracing, and it is absolutely stunning.
So I may go Miles Morales on you there. Again, released a little too late. Damn you, AJ. To be nominated.
All right.
But outs to Ori and the Will of the Wisps and 13 Sentinels as well. Those games are absolutely gorgeous.
Ori always reminds me of Trine.
Just
gorgeous games that get overlooked by everybody.
Yep.
Also, really,
Ori is gorgeous, and I own them both on my Switch.
It's pretty, but personally, again, compared to Ghost, it's hard for me to immerse myself in a world like Ori just based on how they present the game from a camera angle. Whereas with Ghosts, you're sitting in a field and you can imagine yourself there.
Yep.
It's the full world experience for sure. But yeah, and I even find that a lot of the games that over the years that I found to be like the prettiest are some of those like smaller games like Entwined or Journey or something like that, where it's like
Journey winning game of the year is still one of those things that makes me want to punch a baby in its soft spot.
Oh, really?
So absurd, dude. It's just so
I'm
absurd.
not sure it's really game of the well, I don't know. Journey is pretty great. I don't know. I'd have to see what else is nominated that year.
Journey was like Journey. It's not a knock on Journey. It's just
right.
I figured the game of the year.
Yeah. No.
I see what you're saying, and I think I can agree with that. Yeah, but I would nominate for something like Prettiest or something. But it is more impressive when you can create a full world like that. All right, the big one, the big honkin' one, and we can even add to this if we need to, because really everything's on the table at this point. This is the opportunity for everyone to just talk about their favorite game from this year, because we've come to Game of the Year, and we don't necessarily have to do it the same way that the Game Awards did, though honestly I'm not sure that there's anything that we feel like we need to talk about in this category. I think they did a pretty good job, honestly, of their nominees for Game of the Year and for recognizing kind of outstanding games this year. Matt, you work in the industry, you're more plugged into it than we are. Did you feel like there were any? So I'll put it out that way. The nominees, I'll throw them and then I'll say what's
what are your nominees?
The nominees were they're basically the same, right? We don't have anything different here. Final Fantasy VII Remake, Doom Eternal, Animal Crossing, New Horizons, Ghost of Tsushima, The Last of Us 2.
So from that perspective, I've beaten and I've played through Last of Us. I've done Ghost, of course, Animal Crossing. I think for me, my trio though was Ghost of Tsushima winning Game of the Year. That's my personal Game of the Year, with Animal Crossing second and Last of Us third. Animal Crossing for me, I looked at it for look what it did for the gaming community this year. We go in lockdown and it gave everybody something to do. And it's to the point where you could not buy a copy anywhere. I mean, we're talking, they sold more in that first month than they did the entire last generation that had an Animal Crossing.
Right.
When you think about it, I mean, it is on their top 20 list now. But for me, it's Ghost. Just for everything from the storytelling. I mean, Sucker Punch did an amazing job with this game. Yes, they did borrow some mechanics from Uncharted and Horizon. But overall, the story, the graphics, the mechanics, just the amount of detail and they paid to the history of Japan during, feudal Japan era. I mean, they even went over to Japan, did the research. Last of Us, I think, is the darling, like we all talked about, right? And that, yes, absolutely. I love Neil Druckmann and company at Naughty Dog. I'm kind of like a walking poster boy for Naughty Dog. I have all the Uncharted shirts, all the statues, everything. But that being said, I think the story went in a direction that in some ways didn't necessarily need to go in some of that way. To me, some of the violence wasn't necessary. But for me, overall, it was Ghost.
All right. AJ, give us the animal. You've been waiting for the moment. You've been waiting for the time. And really, again, what I want this to be is us just singing the praises of the games we loved this year. It doesn't, have to be versus the other. Mm-hmm. Tell us what was so great about Animal Crossing New Horizons this year.
I mean, I think the big thing with Animal Crossing this year was that it transcended gaming. I mean, Matt yes. touched on it beautifully there, but it became a cultural touchstone. One of the things that yes. we are going to remember the most about quarantine, the life of quarantine in 2020, is right. when all of us suddenly decided that we had to play Animal Crossing. Now, there are people like me who've been playing Animal Crossing half my life, and so it was just like, I remember one of our first ever podcasts that we did for DNVR Gaming was me freaking out about Animal Crossing. Right. And then it got released, and everybody else was sitting at home like, well, that looks cute.
I mean, to AJ's point, like transcending, right, is we had a group text going amongst all our friends going, what do you have for sale in your shop today? And we would take screenshots and send it to everybody and go, hey, what are you selling? And we'd open gates and everybody would come over and come visit and whatnot. But yeah,
Yeah, and
It's
we had
transcendent.
our WoW guild was in a bunch of us played Animal Crossing together, and we were doing beat the stock market together. So we were all buying them. We were all buying them up, and we were all doing everything. Checking the prices, and then well, whoever has the highest,
who's got the
we're
best
going
one?
to that island, and we're all just gonna sell.
My wife and I do that right now.
Totally. Right.
We travel between islands. So, with that though, Drew, I do have to drop though. It is that top of the hour out here, and 8:00 out here in the wet or in the east rather. So,
that's why I wanted to get you there and sing the praises for Ghost, man. I really appreciate it. Tell the
Ghost
people where they can
Ghost is amazing.
Game Night, though.
So, Crashing Game Night, we are on all platforms. Whether it's Pandora, iHeartRadio, iTunes. CrashingGameNight.com is the best place to go though for our articles. We've got our archive there for all of our episodes. You can follow us on Crashing Game Night. We've got it on Twitter at CGN_Matt or CGN Podcast. But yeah, we have a very big episode coming up next week that actually, Drew, you are going to be on.
yeah, that's going to be fun. We're going to be talking to some fun people, man. I'm going to catch up with John Eric Bentley again, man. That's going to be fun.
Yep, absolutely. No, this was a blast. Next time we'll have to not talk about so much the game of the year and stuff, and maybe talk about why Reach is actually a little bit higher on the list.
No, get him out of here. Cut him. He's got to go.
I was gonna say, I love that he dropped that at the end after doing all the other work. Like, don't start with
going so well. Get him out.
Matt, I love you, brother. I love you. Thank you so much for hanging out with us, and we'll see you some other time. We'll have you back on.
Get me back on. Absolutely. Anytime. Yeah. All right.
Take care, man.
Good night, guys.
See you.
We'll see you.
Oh.
Quick rearranging there.
Do a quick shuffle. All right, Rudo, what was your favorite gaming experience of the year?
I mean, I think they covered the correct answers, but my favorite experience has been Shadowlands by a long shot. As someone who hadn't played WoW in over a decade, who vowed that the game sucks and I hate it, and then I came back to BFA and the game sucked and I hated it. And then I got Shadowlands, and for the past 2 weeks, I've been staying up till 4 or 5 a.m. every night. Do not want to put the game down, and it's just amazing. It feels like I'm a 13-year-old kid again, like discovering that MMOs are a thing. So,
and Rudo and I do raids together, and I'm very excited about that.
It's crazy how you can build a community.
Totally,
it's actually crazy.
Yeah. I mean, seriously though, like it's not part of the game of the year discussion, but
my first ever WoW experience was BFA. I didn't enjoy it very much. I enjoyed it because it let me play video games with a cute girl that I would very much like to marry someday. But it beyond that, like it just wasn't very fun. It was something that I had a lot of problems with. The story wasn't great. I was not engrossed in it. Just the things that you did in the expansion weren't very fun. And now in Shadowlands, I was on Shadowlands immediately before this podcast. As soon as it ends, I will hop right back on. I was up until 4 o'clock in the morning trying to get more gear because I am way behind our raid group. It's for me, it's really fun, but it also reminds me a lot of when I was hardcore playing Guild Wars 1 and had a group that I played with and the community and, just spending time with people with common interests. And, you have a common goal of like, hey, we're going to push this castle down. We're going to tear this thing down from the inside. And it's great. And it's a lot of fun, but really just the expansion itself is just so much better. There's so much to do. There's so many cool ideas. The very Castlevania-esque Torghast runs are awesome. They can be a little bit long, but for the most part,
you're hoping really for short layers for sure.
Like because you're at the mercy of the randomized dungeon system, and sometimes you just get like Z and I did a run where blew right through it, no real problem. We did another run where it was like we walk into the first room on like the 4th or 5th floor, and it was like 5 bosses, and we're like,
what is this?
Like, what the hell, dude? Like, this is chaos. So it it's a really good time though, and it's such a cool system to implement into WoW. And then you have all the other regular WoW things that they've built on over the years.
That they've executed much better this time around.
Absolutely. And I come from being a hardcore Guild Wars player, and now I'm like, this is a great WoW experience.
Yep.
I've thoroughly enjoyed this. I've more excited to play Shadowlands than I am the next Guild Wars 2 expansion. I didn't even finish the last Guild Wars expansion because I was so meh about it. Wow, you guys introduced mounts, and now you guys make me run around with all these crazy quests to do them, and it just was not. It wasn't. It's gone a direction I haven't liked. Whereas Shadowlands is awesome. It's gone a direction that I've really enjoyed. I also love this comment that Payday 2 needs to be the best ongoing game because that game is mad underrated, and I used to play the hell out of it back in the day with friends because robbing banks with your friends is a really good time.
I was so bad at that game.
I was too. I was bad at it, but it was a lot of fun. And that it's continued to be supported the way that it has is awesome. I don't have a problem with No Man's Sky getting it because
I thought that was cool.
They've poured so much into it to make it realize its initial potential after such an awful launch that kudos to them for making good on the promises. Eventually
rename that award the comeback game of the year, and
No
Man's Sky
totally
by a mile.
For sure.
I think an expansion saving one of the most important franchises in video game history is pretty big news for the year of 2020. So it's great to hear, as someone who's never really been into it, that Shadowlands is doing the work and keeping it around, because even if it's not my thing, it should be a thing. And it should be a good thing. And so that's really important. And I'll finish my final thoughts on saying the part, of course, everybody knew was coming from me, which was, and it's actually, it's kind of funny that I didn't expect Final Fantasy VII Remake to win Game of the Year from anybody else. And I don't even think, like, it's just in such a weird place. I think what's actually more important is that it's just here at all, and that most people recognize that it belongs in that kind of category, because there may not have been a more high-risk game to make in 2020 than remaking one of the most important games of all time, remaking one of the most beloved games of all time, and changing a bunch of shit. And I mean, and dramatically changing things. We live in a world where, and we've talked about this before, lots of things get remade, most of them lazily and for cash grab reasons, and they could very easily have done that, and that they released something that matters to people, and that's something. It's this thing mattered to people before, right? It and I'm one of those people. Final Fantasy VII isn't just a game; it's a place. It was a place I would return to once every 2 or 3 years. I would go home to this place, and I would be with these people, and I would listen to this music, and I would experience a different kind of existence. And they were like, we're going to try to give you that exact experience, but in a modern way that wows you again. And their task was almost impossible. They could have ruined it 99 ways out of 100, and they didn't. They nailed it. And so, other games are, naturally more innovative because they're new. And there's some filler and stuff in Final Fantasy VII Remake. It's ultimately a 30-hour experience. There are things about it that can be better, but for millions of people, it was the most emotional gaming experience of 2020. And there was just no way, it was going to be one way or the other. And those emotions could have been remarkably negative, right? And so that they produced something of such extraordinary quality for people like me, for whom, Final Fantasy is more than games. Those are my stories, right? Those are my worlds. That's my place. That's my home. That's where I go to. That they did this thing. Like, straight up.
That's going to be your stories instead of somebody watching Murder, She Wrote in a retirement
straight
home.
up.
Your stories is going to be Final Fantasy.
Straight up. The way my mom,
Grandpa Drew playing his stories again.
Playing the stories, man. These are my stories. And I know there are a lot of people out there who we were all very nervous, right? That someone's going to mess with my stories. And they didn't. They told it to us again in such a loving, heartfelt way. And you see a lot of the critiques out there that do exist about 7 Remake, but none of them are this was put together lazily, or this was put together to exploit people. This was put together as a love letter to people who loved the original thing, and that's so difficult to pull off this well.
It's interesting that you were afraid of them screwing it up, and the remaster of the Mass Effect trilogy is something that I'm just like, oh my god, it can absolutely use it. This already amazing series has so much potential to get even better that they could seriously put this thing into the next level if they get it right. And if they screw it up, the trilogy is still amazing. So I'm still excited to replay it.
Right.
But it's definitely does have that, like, if they don't live up to my expectations, this is going to be a disappointment. And it will leave a lasting mark on what I view as maybe the most important gaming franchise of my life. Just on a personal level, it would be very close between Guild Wars and Halo. Mass Effect is right. I mean, of those three, I only have one tattoo between those three, so arguably the most important one.
Sounds like yeah. And yeah, it's a tough tightrope to walk. I was going to make a movie analogy, but I'm not sure there's one. It's like the classics, right? Of it, but like if they announced they were remaking Citizen Kane or something, and people were like, wait, what? And then it ended up being so better. Yeah, right. Well, that's the thing. Is like that's why I realized the analogy didn't totally work. I was like, whatever you think the greatest movie of all time is, whatever that is to you, imagine somebody said to you, "We're going to remake that," and then they did, and it was good enough to get nominated for an Academy Award. Not necessarily be the best picture of the year, but good enough that nobody that blinks that it was not. Like that would be so difficult to pull that off. So
I mean, Matrix 4 is coming out like next year, right? So
my man.
What is?
I'm saying Matrix 4.
Matrix, yeah.
Oh my god.
OG Matrix is dope. It's not Oscar worthy. Well, in some ways it is. In the ways it was
in
made.
Its time, it was very progressive in that side, sure. But today it does not hold up.
The writing and the acting is awful. But the idea was good. And on that note, so we're not even going to go. We started with nobody gets an award because no one was deserving an award in our sports category. I think our game of the year is whatever your game of the year was, whatever your favorite game of the year experience was for you. That was the best game of the year. So for me, it happened to be Final Fantasy VII Remake. AJ, some new Horizons in the Animal Crossing, Shadowlands.
Yep.
Those are all games of the year. That's the great thing about this medium is we all get to entertain ourselves.
I would like to shout out Genshin Impact, not because it's necessarily a good game and screw all the microtransaction stuff, but it's helping innovate the crossover between proper gaming and mobile gaming. The number of games you can count that play well on console or PC as well as on your phone is very, very limited. Hearthstone, our sponsor, WGT Golf, and those games are not pretty. There isn't a lot of animation on the screen, and somehow Genshin Impact managed to make a very visceral game look great both on PC and on a phone. So just wanted to shout them out. Definitely not near as good as some of these other games, but was worth a mention.
Worth a shout out. Well, let us know out there what your favorite game of the year was and what games you're looking forward to most next year so that we know what to be on the lookout for. This was a lot of fun. Really want to appreciate, I do appreciate, and I want to thank Matt Diorio for swinging by. Remember to check out Crashing Game Night and all the fun stuff they're doing there. Like you said, I'm going to be on that show next week. So if you want to check it out, we're going to be talking Final Fantasy VII with some of the voices of the Final Fantasy VII remake. So that'll be a whole lot of fun. Make sure you're following the DNVR Gaming and DNVR Watches. You're subscribing to both of those podcast feeds. Friday we're doing these live shows on Periscope and Twitch and YouTube. And then a little bit after that at 8 o'clock, we do our Mandalorian Watches. And there's another DNVR podcast coming your way. So make sure you're hanging out with all of us. You're subscribing to the DNVR.com. You're drinking your Breck Brew and your Strava Craft coffee. You're playing your WGT golf because, well, that's how we get to do this thing is that they hook us up with a little bit of sponsorship. You hook them up with a little bit of playing a free video game. Seems like you guys kind of come out on the better end of that deal. I feel like sort of works out pretty well for all of us. So again, download it at dnvrgolf.com today. Join the DNVR 4 Country Club and just keep playing fun games out there and hanging out with us every week. And until next time, see at the not at the ballpark. At the game. I almost did my other damn sign off. I flew right into it. Oh man. Yeah. Quite the day. We'll see you at the virtual ballpark. We'll see you inside the video games, people. Bye.